Hello and welcome to the third subpool. Here we are getting in out of the neophyte pool and into some of our veteran submissions. I'd also like to give a shout out to Laps, who is bringing both the most meta fleet I think he's ever had with the Orion class Ferolda. You can see the big block armor, and also bringing some style points with his old not even gonna try. But I also recommend checking him out on YouTube. He's currently doing a series about Angels Fall First, which actually looks like a rather interesting game. So go ahead and give him a look-see, and thanks for joining us, Laps, but let's see how we get on here. Up first we have Exterp 7 up against Iceborn. Now, Iceborn's bringing Terran Kiters. These ones you can see have rockets, torpedoes, missiles. Shields are pretty standard. These look like antimatters and flat cannons. We saw antimatter ships disrespecting a lot, but I think a lot of that had to do with both the cost and the fact that they had a lot of close-range point defense weapons. The flat cannons do much less DPS than the defense cannons, which I think will help it choose a more optimal range, but we'll see. And these little guys are just point fillers. They're pretty much intended to run around and distract the enemy for a few seconds before they die. The Cryophoenix Purifiers we actually saw from Iceborn in the boss raid last month. I don't think anything has changed on them since, but there's the smaller purifier, the larger purifier, and some of these little drone ships running around. But let's see how we get on. Generally speaking, in a kiter fight, I will almost always bet in favor of the tank roll, which unfortunately for Exterp means I have to bet against his fleet. Tank rolls are the master of long-range kiting combat, and we'll probably see why here in a second. And yeah, stacking was allowed on this one. Generally speaking, I try to operate on the rule that if you come up with an idea and it isn't listed in the rules, then feel free to give it a shot. If I don't like it, then I still have the option of vetoing it before the tournament or afterward if it proves to be too effective. But Iceborn takes round one. You can see the big purifier for Iceborn was pretty strong in the actual boss battle, but it had a problem where it kept running too close to the boss and getting murdered because, you know, the boss battle had that was not a fair or equal fight. But in here, where it's fighting, you know, more rationally scaled opponents, you can see just how fast and lethal that cannon is. It seems like it's a little short range relative to a lot of tank roll, but it might just be because of the zoom scaling. But we'll see how it gets on. It is coming out the gate pretty strong. And that is a very fast ship too. And Iceborn takes the match. So up next we have Exterp up against Laps. Now Laps, we have the this is the Ferolda Stubnose, which we saw in the boss battle as well. And from time to time, actually, I think Splinter said in testing, the Ferolda did manage to kill the boss after everybody else was dead. And we've seen this guy before, and it has performed pretty admirably in the past. It's one of those ships that just refuses to die. But let's see how they get on up against Exterp 7's fleet. Exterp 7 has a general range advantage, but you can see those antimatters doing some work on both sides. That little ship is just not prepared to deal with antimatters, but the big guy is a little less capable of keeping up. And we can also kind of see, like I was saying before, Laps's ship just refuses to die. It's holding on rather well down there. And because it's got some antimatters on the sides, even when it's kiting around and facing on an angle, it still tends to be able to pick up kills here and there. Laps only brought a 2-ship fleet, which is kind of a liability, because it allows the enemy to more efficiently focus fire, and there's not really any chance of his ships to get relief in order to repair. but Excerpt 7 is hemorrhaging ships slowly but surely. As long as Laps's other kiter continues to fight on, I think the Feralder may be able to clean up that side and then come relieve it. But the kiter from Laps is running out of health pretty quickly. And yeah, I do really like the way Laps's ships look. Like I was saying, this might be the most meta fleet we've had out of Laps with the Feralder. It's kind of like a tank and spank fleet. But Laps didn't compromise beauty to bring brawn. That said, it does seem to be having an issue dealing with all of the kiters. Now, you can kind of see how, now that it's getting focused fire, it's having a very hard time doing anything. You can see turrets just spinning, they don't know what to do anymore. And the ship itself seems to be trying to switch targets constantly, which isn't going in its favor because all of Excerpt 7's ships have shields. So small amounts of damage aren't going to make any progress ever. Still though, that Feralder, that thing is a beast. It's got an array of proton beams on the front of it too, which just hurt. If you could keep a target in front of it, and it would end the target pretty quickly. And yeah, maybe Excerpt 7 will go to the finals. And this round's looking somewhat similar to the past, with the kiter from Laps seeming to take the majority of the attention. I think a lot of that is just that it runs out sooner, and then as it takes off to try and escape the enemy chases. And the Feralder, of course, can't keep up with the kiters at all, try as it might. I'm not sure what's causing you guys to get low quality videos and all that. It might be a Twitch thing. I'm not showing any drop frames on my side or any encoding issues at all. It's all green over here. So it might just be the Twitch is having issues. I'm really not sure. But either way, I am recording, and the high quality video will be on YouTube as soon as I get a chance to encode it after the tournament. Okay, so it also may just be your internet if everybody else is fine. If you have like a DSL or a cable internet connection, this is kind of prime time in most of the United States. So there's a lot of traffic, but now we have Excerpt 7 up against Toxico. And Toxico is bringing kind of his signature style with the giant beast ships, but he's going with a new overall aesthetic, which I rather like. All the little details, the tiny little structures that look like they're holding things together. Big fan of that, and you can see some spaced armor to help absorb initial splash damage on what are presumably rushers, looking at the thruster layout. One problem I think we are going to see, the AI does not like having its turning thrusters behind the center of mass, and so this thing is going to try and rush backwards a lot. So I don't know if Toxico tested that and that was desirable, or maybe I'm wrong, but we will see. Yeah, and the first thing they do, you see, they turn around. But yeah, back to what I was saying, if you have, especially cable and DSL connections, during peak use hours, all of them end up going down the same physical cable. And as a result, when there's a lot of chatter going on locally, like in your city during peak use hours, you'll see slow and unstable connections, which if you're just browsing like Reddit or Discord or whatever, you won't even notice, but if you're streaming video, it becomes readily apparent. So that might be a thing. But we are seeing Xderp 7 go into town here. Xderp 7 doing a good job so far, but Iceborn still has to have his go around. Iceborn may be able to clinch the pool, but Xderp 7 is certainly in the running. I would like to see Labs move on, but we'll see how the Iceborn Labs fight goes. I'm rooting for Labs. And alright, Duke, see you later. You'll probably be back in time to actually watch your fleet fight. Solid showing from Xderp here. And moving into round 2. With the way round 1 went, I'm guessing round 2 will probably go very similar. Xderp's ships are doing a very good job of keeping range, and since he has the range advantage, that pretty much seals it. Although that said, one can never discount the AI. It often likes to make interesting decisions at inopportune moments. Yeah, I'm not sure. If the tractor beams would save it. I'm not really sure how to have a giant flagship deal with kiters. That's one of the reasons I try to avoid them, but Extrip 7 takes the match. So next up we have Iceborn up against Laps. Iceborn we saw it take pretty handily before, but largely it was because Tinkerol versus kiters generally goes in favor of Tinkerol. And you can see even here that took apart Laps's kiter pretty quickly. And yeah, the purifiers seem to be behaving themselves pretty well, which is unfortunate for Laps. Would have liked to see Laps take the win here, but looks like that might not be in the cards. Yeah, capital ships are really good at fighting other capital ships, but if nobody brings capital ships, then what are they good at? Now, that looked like the that larger ship from Iceborn took a big hit there. Yeah, you can see it trying to piece together its little back section. And this is similar to the behavior we saw in the raid boss. The main ship from Iceborn just does not seem to understand that it doesn't have to be close to the enemy. And a lot of that boils down to how many point defense lasers it has. Because it has so many, it thinks that it should be fighting at close range. And then it tries to dodge and move out of the way, and you can see it just has very little time in which the front of the ship is actually pointing at the enemy. The little ships are actually the ones that have done most of the damage here. And there's the execution behavior I love to complain about. And yeah, the cannon on the main ship for the purifiers is in the back. So if it loses its rear end, then it loses the bulk of its damage. Unfortunately, in the AI's calculations, when it's figuring out what range it should fight at for Tinkerol ships, it will consider the fact that it has range mods in determining how long range the main weapon is, but it will not count the damage and rate of fire mods, so it thinks its main cannon is a 40 DPS weapon, despite the fact that it's very clearly not. And so if you put even 1 point defense laser on a Tinkerol ship, it tends to rush forward, which is one of the reasons a lot of Tinkerol ships are designed to recoil themselves to safety, or they're designed to be so fast that they don't need point defense. Yeah, Flypace, they have a similar design. We have Iceborn up against Toxico. I have a similar idea already called Motherships, where the capital ship also gets to have a factory, and no other factories are allowed in the fleet. Clem, you haven't missed too much. We're on the third pool out of 7. And did you not send in a fleet, Clem Hazard? Because I'm not seeing you anywhere. Yeah, we had some very distinct and rather neat submissions in the neophyte pools, which was pretty cool. Iceborn lost his big ship? Nice. Go Toxico. As much as I love Tinkerol, it's always fun to root for not Tinkerol. And yeah, you see here again, this is the front of the ship, but because all of its maneuver thrusters are in the back, it's facing ass first, even though it's like a third as quick. The maneuver thrust replacement is going to bite Toxico in the ass repeatedly, I think. Yeah, if you're having a black screen refresh on your side, I'm not seeing any issues here. And this is, more often than not, kind of the bane of Tinkerol. They do really well against kiters, but it takes them a very long time to actually kill anything with a serious health pool. Welcome back, Duke. Yeah, a capital ship tournament could be pretty damn fun. I think he means he's going to use your idea of flight paste and create a tournament with the capital ship stuff. And Iceborn takes the match. So that gives 3 to Iceborn and 2 to Xdirt. But now we have Laps up against Toxico. And here I think we'll see the Ferolder in its intended glory. Once it's able to bring all those forward-mounted weapons to bear. And you can see Laps Kiter behaving rather well, keeping its distance like a good ship. Looks like the Ferolder did take a big torpedo hit though. You can see the giant chunk missing on the left side of the ship, the port side or whatever, if you're into that kind of thing. The Ferolder, however, seems to be distracted and chasing not the thing that it should be fighting, which is considerably less than ideal. You can see 2 of Toxico's ships kind of ganging up on the Ferolder, which is undesirable. But as the Ferolder turns around, you can see it's effectively increasing, or it's increasing its effective health, courtesy of the new stuff. The Kiter making some questionable choices, however, does not bode particularly well. Unfortunately for Laps, it does look like Toxico is going to probably be taking this one. At least the first round. Hopefully Laps can make a comeback in the second though. Yeah, Toxico's rocket ship is pretty solid. Rockets are really not a bad weapon. They just have kind of the same problem as proton beams, where they're a sustained fire weapon. And if you can't keep sustained fire on the target, then they go to crap pretty quickly. But Toxico's ship seems to be pretty well behaved in that department. Now we move on to round 2. And immediately we can see some disrespect, which is unfortunate. But Laps' ship continuing to fight on, refusing to surrender. That forward cannon battery on Toxico's ship is pretty brutal. Laps caps. Yeah, Laps's kiter is so far doing well, but it kind of did this last time where against the smaller ships from Toxico it behaved well, and then it decided that it wanted to hug the giant flagship from Toxico. So with a little luck it'll refrain from hugging things that can kill it in 2 seconds. That would be nice. Well, Laps's cap ship has a big investment in proton beams on the front of it that it's not pointing at the enemy. And the proton beams don't do great DPS to begin with, but the fact that they're not pointed at the enemy is also not helping. And yeah, some ships do just need a hug. They don't bully on purpose, they bully because, you know, they hurt inside. You can see Laps's kiter taking apart the rocket ship, though. And even if the Ferolder isn't bringing its weapons to bear particularly effectively, as long as it keeps the larger ship busy, that might work. Might just do the trick. Toxico took it on points, though. And there's the final stats for the pool. So thank you for joining, and I hope you enjoyed. Have a good one.